Hi guys, I'm Jodi, Charlie Book Fanatic, and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I've done this tag last year. I will link it down below if you are interested in my answers for that. But basically what this tag entails is questions like, what is the best book you've read so far in 2018? What is your biggest disappointment? So basically an evaluation of what I have read up until this point, which I think is very fun. There are quite a lot of questions. So let's jump into this immediately. The first question is, what is the best book I have read so far in 2018? And hands down, that was More Than We Can Tell by Brigid Kemmerer. This is Brigid Kemmerer's newest release and I absolutely loved it. It's about a boy who comes from an abusive home and is now with his he's white, adoptive parents. And then there is this girl who is an online game creator and she gets involved in this whole online abuse situation and she doesn't know how to deal with it. And this all spirals out of control, and meanwhile these two totally different people grow towards each other, get in some sort of weird friendship / relationship. It is really cool. It's very dramatic, but that's what I loved most about this book, honestly. Best sequel you've read so far, Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness, and I did not expect this one because it has been a while since I read the first two books in this trilogy, but this book was amazing. I did not expect it. I didn't like the first two books particularly. They were enjoyable, but only like 3-star reads to me, and Monsters of Men was definitely a 4-star read. I'll get back to you as to why later in this tag, because I'm going to mention one of the characters from Monsters of Men in this tag still, so you will hear more about that. New releases I haven't read yet but really want to. The first one is Neverworld by Marisha Pessl. This one came out early June, so it has just come out and my boyfriend had actually bought it for me, so I will receive the beautiful UK paperback very soon and I am so excited to read it, genuinely. Marisha Pessl is the author of Night Film and I absolutely love that book. It's one of my favorite adult thrillers of all time, one of my favorite books in general of all time, and this is the first book she's coming out with since that book, so I cannot wait to see what this one is going to entail. It's completely different. It's a YA sci-fi mystery. I knew more about this beforehand. I kind of forgot the premise, but nonetheless I am still very excited about it and I cannot wait to get to it. Another release I just heard about on Books and Lala's channel is Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a book about a girl whose best friend, I think, gets raped by her brother and she has to come to terms with the consequences of that because obviously she wants to believe her best friend, but she also doesn't believe her brother could be capable of something as terrible as that. So this follows this girl stuck between her brother and her best friend and everything playing out, and it sounds super interesting. Also the cover is a major beauty. The next one is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is a huge novella in between the third and fourth book in this series. I haven't read it yet, sadly. It's come out at the beginning of May and I have wanted to read it, but I didn't get around to buying it yet, but soon I will. In the summer vacation, I think. I will probably buy it and then devour it because I need more favor and recent in my life. And the last one on this list is Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. This is the second book in the Simonverse and also the last book. I did not like Simonverse the Homo Sapiens Agenda that much. I thought it was enjoyable. I rated it 3 stars, but it wasn't my favorite book of all time or anything. I wasn't even planning on reading this until my boyfriend read Simon and he was quite excited about it. I actually really liked it. So now we're going to read the second book together. This is about a side character from Simon. She's called Leah. She's a fat bisexual teen. That sounds exciting to me. She also has a potty mouth, I believe. So there will be a lot of swearing in this. I think she's going to be sarcastic and super funny. Pop culture references as well, by the way. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Most anticipated release for the second half of 2018. Record of a Spaceborn Few by Becky Chambers. This is the third book in the Along Way to a Small Angry Planet series. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's called the Wayfarer series, but don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. The first book is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I love that first book. I did not like the second book in this series. It did follow some side characters from the first book, but it was okay to me. Wasn't a huge fan, but the third book has so much promise. I love this world and I have so much hope for this book, which is a YA sci-fi and obviously a continuation, but can probably be read as a standalone as well, because it does follow different characters from the first 2 books, but still in the same world. If the synopsis sounds interesting to you and you want to read this, I think you can just read it as a standalone. Biggest disappointment. Controversial answer alert. Brace yourself for it. Obsidio, the third book in the Illuminate Files trilogy by Amie, Kaufman and Kristoff. I talked about this in my April wrap-up. I will link that down below, so so you know why I didn't like this as much. But yeah, this is my biggest disappointment so far. I loved Illuminate, I liked Gemina, but less, and this one was just the biggest disappointment in the entire series. It was an okay finale, but I expected more from it. Biggest surprise, My Lady Jane, the first book in the Lady Janies by Cynthia and Brodi, Ashton and Jodi Meadows. This book was so funny. I just picked it up at random from the library because I heard Haley from Haley and Bookland talk about this, and she was raving about it. And then I saw it at the library and I was like, sure, why the heck not? And I picked it up, I read it, and it was super funny. I can't remember laughing at the book this much in ages, and I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait for the second book, which is a retelling of Jane Eyre, I believe. It is coming out very soon. It's called My Plain Jane, and I am definitely going to pick that one up because honestly, this was one of my favorite books of this year so far. Favorite new author? Brigid Kemmerer. I have read a book by Brigid Kemmerer before, Letters from the Lost, I think last year, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. More Than We Can Tell is a spin-off from that book. I read that, and after that, Brigid Kemmerer became one of my favorite new authors. I count her because I don't have a lot of new authors I've read this year so far. I've mostly read new books from authors I've read before, including Brigid Kemmerer. But I felt like I had to include something in this, so if I had to choose one of the authors I have read so far, it would be her. Newest fictional crush, Rev from More Than We Can Tell by Brigid Kemmerer. He is amazing. Like, with his past and everything he's going through, he's such a well-developed character. He's adorable with his love interest. Just the way he handles everything, how cautious he is. It's just very endearing to me, and I don't really have fictional crushes in books. That doesn't happen to me very easily, but Rev was definitely a character that stood out to me this year so far. Newest favorite character, Mayor Prentice from the Chaos Walking trilogy, which the third book is Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness. Mayor Prentice is the villain in this trilogy, and he has been growing throughout this trilogy to be one of the most evil villains I have ever read about, and it intrigues me so much. He as a character is just super fascinating to me. I like villain characters. Like, I don't think Mayor Prentice is likable in the slightest, but he was just a very interesting character to me, and probably the most interesting character so far this year. Maybe one of my most interesting characters in general, because he is so complicated. He has so many layers and is complex. He's a well thought out character, and you really see him descend into villainy more and more, and you really see how evil, but also kind of morally grey he is. Well, he is definitely morally grey, slightly towards the blacker end of the spectrum, but in Monsters of Men, you really see how he tries to talk up his accomplishments, like what he's done so far. He's trying to justify the evil actions he's taken. I can't obviously say any of the evil actions because those are major spoilers for the series, because the series is a lot of the time about Mayor Prentice, but he is a very, very dark character. I enjoyed my time with him immensely throughout this series. Book that made you cry. This is a very recent book I read, but The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I read this book in May, and I will be talking about it in my May wrap-up, but this book is the end of the Mistborn trilogy, and it has been a long time coming for me to finish this entire trilogy, but man, did it hit me. The ending of this book was brutal, and I did not see it coming. It was so unpredictable, but I absolutely loved it. I loved how Brandon Sanderson concluded this series, because it really couldn't have gone any other way. He didn't go with a safe, happy ending. He went with a realistic, painful, heartbreaking ending, and I really respect him for that. Book that made you happy. Warcross, the first book in the Warcross trilogy, I think, by Marie Lu. Not necessarily because of the events in this book, but just because I really like Marie Lu, and I was very happy when she came out with another book. I really like the premise of this book, which is basically a gaming competition, and there's this hacker, the main character called Amie, who has to figure out who is trying to sabotage this whole gaming competition, this whole tournament basically. And I really, really like that. I cannot wait for the second book, Wild Cards. But yeah, everything Marie Lu releases just makes me very happy. And particularly this release made my heart happy. Favorite book to movie adaptation you saw this year? I haven't seen a lot of book to movie adaptations, but I have to say Every Day by David Levithan. I haven't read the book. I wanted to, but then I really just wanted to see the movie. So I kind of skipped the book and watched the movie. But the movie was very beautiful. And the message it showcases is incredible. Which is basically, you can fall in love with anyone. It doesn't really matter how they look, as long as you just fall in love with who they are on the inside. I love that. I love that message for this entire movie, and I really recommend you look up what the movie is about, and if it interests you, please watch it, because it was really good. Most beautiful book you bought this year? Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is a standalone, and look at the beauty that this book is. This is, by the way, a spoiler for my spring book haul, because this just came in, but it is a thing of beauty. I love it. I also love this book, by the way. That is why I bought it in this beautiful edition. And what book do you need to read by the end of the year? And I'm going to recycle an answer here. Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake, because it is probably one of the most interesting books I have ever heard about. And I don't add a lot of books to my TBR anymore, unless I like continuations in series or books by favorite authors or something. But this book really caught my attention because of the synopsis, and I cannot wait to read it. I really need to read this because I think it is going to be hard-hitting for me and incredibly difficult to read, but also something that will stay with me for a very long time. So this was the mid-year book freakout tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below your answers to any of these questions. Do you agree or disagree with me on any of my answers? I would love to know. Thank you for watching. Goodbye!